Hello, everyone, and welcome to the BirthFit podcast. I am Dr. Lindsey Matthews Cantu, your BirthFit host. And with me today, I have a very special friend, longtime mentor, Elizabeth Bachner,
And colleague.
and colleague.
Colleague, we've worked together at plenty of births.
I know, I just wanted to put in there friend. She's my friend.
Friends. We've been hanging out since you get your first doula training, I think.
Forever. Yeah, I've learned so much from you, and I continue to learn so much from you.
Aw.
So I finally get her on the BirthFit podcast.
I think we did one back in the day and it disappeared into the aethers.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely an archive of them, of the BirthFit podcast, but I for sure wanted to have like some special episodes before I go out on maternity leave, and this is one of them.
Mhm.
So I'm stoked you're here. You're still practicing in Los Angeles and other places, I think, but
So I have a license in both Los Angeles and also in New Mexico. And
ooh,
so I have transitioned myself with my home base in New Mexico, but I've got plenty of private clients I still see in California.
oh my gosh.
Yeah, I see a lot of private clients in California, and then I'm also kind of transitioning into more consulting work. So I've been working with people internationally, as well as national. And my real passion is not just helping people birth a baby outside of the hospital. That's what my license says, but it's also helping people birth themselves. It's helping people
Mhm.
find the clarity or the grace, whether that's a free birth at home, a home birth with a midwife, a birth center birth, a hospital birth with an epidural, or a scheduled C-section. Like, I'm not attached to that. What I'm attached to is somebody starting the parenting journey from a place of clarity, or what I sometimes call grace.
I love that.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're somebody that I've admired, I mean, forever, and I got the opportunity to work at your birth center, which is called Graceful on the east side of Los Angeles.
In Silver Lake.
Yeah, and it's super cute. And you've met every single one of your clients or potential clients with non-judgment, which we were just talking about, like the judgment in this space with the moms, with the midwives, with the practitioners, it's just got to go.
Right. No, it's kind of insane. So I want to answer that question, but I also just want to give a little bit of a background for people who don't
Do it.
know.
Yeah.
I'm a very unusual midwife because it came to me through dreams. I was 35, minding my own business, and I'd just become an acupuncturist, and I kept getting dreams. The babies would drop into my hands, and I would look up and go, I don't know what to do. And I had made really poor life decisions at that point. Nothing was working out the way I was taught it was supposed to work out by
Mhm.
society and my family. And I was like, well, I might as well just like listen to these dreams. And I
Right.
was told by Anna Verwal, who people might know from the business of being born, that I had received the calling to be a midwife. So I was like judging it. I was like, why would anybody birth outside by the trees with a person with dirty nails? Like, I didn't know what it was. I'm from the East Coast. I have an undergrad from Tufts. No one educated me about birth. They just told me, you get pregnant, have a baby, you go to the male doctor, you get medicine, they clean the baby up and then put a bow on it, and like you go home and live happily ever after. I lived during the time of Reaganomics, fantasy. I didn't even know that I didn't know how awesome the anatomical female body is. I mean,
Wow.
Lindsey, it grows a human being. Like, think about that for a second. It's like,
That's a huge trip.
what?
Yeah.
So I came into midwifery in a pretty unusual way, and
Yeah.
I haven't birthed any children of my own. So when I came into it, I was super skeptical of midwifery and out of hospital birth. I didn't understand why anyone would do it. So the process of becoming a medically board licensed midwife that specializes in low risk out of hospital birth was a process of deprogramming
Mhm.
how I saw not only birth, but the world.
Absolutely.
And so in the process of doing that, I just didn't have judgment around the choices.
Mm.
And a lot of people put on to me, oh, you're a midwife, which means like, they like apologize for an epidural. And I'm like, I'm not like, where are you getting that from? Like, I'm not attached. So in the process of becoming a midwife, I did a lot. I kind of haphazardly fell into the world of somatic therapy. And I had the privilege and honor of training with the late Ray Castellino with
Mm.
training and the womb surround process workshops. I worked with him for about 8-ish years in different ways and did his training before he passed. And also, I've had the honor of sitting with Anna Chitty. I've done her verbal skills training twice now. She's so amazing. And the two of them have really influenced my work. And I've been doing somatic work since 2004, back in the day when everyone was like, oh, that like woo-woo stuff.
That weird stuff.
And I was like, no, it's brain science. Like, I remember when I taught you about Stephen Porges,
Yes.
and I was like, yeah, it's science. The nervous
I
system,
promise it's science.
right? So I've been working with that since 2004. And one of the biggest gifts that I've received from this is the ability to see patterns.
Mm.
What I've learned, and I don't think I've shared with you, is I've come into acceptance. My brain is on the spectrum and it's part of my superpowers. And within that, it can see the patterns of birth. It can see
Mm.
patterns of transition. So I have this incredible training of like 20 plus years being at literal births, holding space for people to birth a literal child. And then at the same time, I have this amazing training of helping them birth parts of themselves. So
Mm.
what I'm always centering around is relationships. The relationship of the mother and the child while the child is inside the body. It's a relationship. And how does that transition out into the world as a relationship? Right.
Mm. Yeah.
And within that, that's what I center around. And then around that, I'm around there as an expert, with my mastery at holding space,
Mm.
with my skills as a medically board licensed practitioner, right? With my somatic skills and all of that. And then typically people have a partner, and they're around that like kind of inner circle, right?
Totally.
You have inner circles and then you have outer circles.
Yeah.
And a great way of explaining, say, an outer circle, is like if you were to have like a baby shower or sprinkle or whatever they call it these days, or ceremony, and it's like you give everybody like a candle, right?
Yeah.
If they go into labor, they're all going to light the candle. That's a great like outer circle of people holding space in the outer circle for you.
Oh, that's a good example. Yeah.
Right? Which is just as important as the inner circle. It's another role to that. So, oh my God, I'm going off on a tangent. I'm
No,
so
I love this because I totally forget. Like I knew about your origins, but I don't think people realize, especially newer birth workers, newer
Mhm.
people in the birth world, know what an opportunity that is for you to be trained by Ray Castellino. I always say his name wrong.
Yeah,
Castellino
yeah,
and Anna Chitty.
yeah.
That's
And
huge.
yeah, and so within that, I'm centering around that relationship, and I am always looking for where's the clarity. For
Mm.
me, I have developed a really strong relationship with the blueprint. This is Anna
Yeah.
Chitty's. And I'm always focused on how is my relationship with the blueprint that is around all of us at all points of time. And some people use the name universe, spirit, goddess, Shekianu, God, higher
Mhm.
power. Like there's so many words for it.
Yeah.
I'm always focused on my relationship with that blueprint and where am I in alignment with it? And how can I receive clarity or hear clarity for myself or as a midwife, what my next steps are to do at a birth, which is something
Mhm.
a next step is do nothing. That's clear. And sometimes the next step is draw the Pitocin and give it to her.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
varies, but what's the thread? It's the clarity,
Mhm.
which I call grace. And that's about a relationship with something bigger, whatever you want to call it. So I'm always looking for where is the clarity? Where is the grace? Not what does it look like? Does it
Mm,
look like a free birth? Does it look like a home birth? Does it look like a hospital birth? Does it look like a C-section? That doesn't interest me so
yeah,
much as where is the clarity? And what people don't understand is that sometimes the clarity contains big emotions we don't like,
yeah. The messy.
right? So it's also part of helping people understand that adulting is being with more than one big emotion at the same time,
Mm,
right?
yeah,
I've worked with clients before that have a medical reason, they're supposed to have a cesarean birth. Like
yeah,
there's a real medical reason. Like if you've got like a placenta that's lying on top of the cervix, it's a
yeah,
really bad idea to have a vaginal birth.
yeah.
But it's like coming to terms with that and realizing you get to mourn
Mm,
the fact that you're not having the water birth with the candles, unassisted, and a free birth, in a tub. Like you get to mourn that
absolutely.
while you're grateful that we have the surgical rooms to keep you and baby safe.
Mm,
Typically, it's two different hats you're wearing. There's a hat of the mom and the hat of the woman that you are. You know what I'm saying? And identifying that. But you get to both these places and you can have clarity going, yeah, like, it's a good thing we're having a C-section, but I hate the idea of having a
yeah,
C-section. No one
yeah,
says you have to like it.
yep.
Surrender into what is,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Ooh.
Did I just go really deep? Yes,
No,
I
I
did.
love it. Well, yes, and I love it. No, I was saying, no, don't
Okay.
stop.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's what I'm constantly looking for. And that's kind of where I've been moving into with all the consulting work that I've been
Yeah,
doing. It's such a joy for me to hold space for these families, all over the world.
yeah. It's because you get to know so much about these people, their families, the individuals that they are. Um, so wait, I want to back up,
Yes.
and you touched on the blueprint. Can
Hmm.
you expand on the blueprint and the imprint? Because I
Yes.
know you can so well.
Right.
And this might be the first time some of the listeners have heard this.
It probably is. So this is not my work. I did not make this up. This is the work of Anna Chitty. So within the somatic world, everything has been super intellectualized, which is great. As somebody who spent a lot of time processing, in ceremonies or in process workshops or doing somatic work, my beginning years of doing all this was cycling in what Anna Chitty has identified as the imprint. The imprint is a place where you're in like this loop where it's like you do a process workshop and you're like, oh my God, I feel so good. This is fantastic. And you got a couple of days of like, yeah, I get it. I get it. And insights. And then all of a sudden you're like back down here to where you were before.
Yeah,
And then you got to do like another process workshop. It's an addiction cycle, just like almost anything else. And for me, I'm really grateful of the people I worked with because there really were no other choices before I found the work of Anna Chitty, who kind of explained all of this. So, I'm cycling in this like imprint, getting better and worse, better and worse, better and worse. But I knew there was something there. And Anna Chitty explains it. And I love that she uses the word blueprint because blueprint is just so not triggering. It's just a blueprint.
yeah,
Again, however you're raised, call it what you want, call it the blueprint. It's kind of all the same.
yeah.
It's this idea that all of us, we are surrounded 24/7 by a blueprint. It's around all of us. It's around me,
Mhm.
it's around you, it's around my dog Sadie sitting on my lap. It's around us 24/7. And within the blueprint, there are little imprints. There's like these knots and these triggers and these like, messy
Mhm.
things and all of that, right? If we identify in with an imprint and I'm like, okay, my mom, like, oh, she just drives me insane, right? So when I identify in with the imprint, I think I am separate. I think that I have to be a good girl
Mm,
to get to the blueprint. It's like a goal or a place I got to get to.
yeah.
What am I going to do? I'm going to do therapy. I'm going to do a somatic session. I'm going to do a meditation. I'm going to do yoga. I'm going to go to church. I'm going to like do prayers. I'm going to go to a circle with all of my girlfriends and like write down my fears on a piece of paper. These are all
Mhm.
things I've done that didn't work. And like put it in a flame and have intentions and, you know,
Okay,
new
your name is my stuff.
paths. And like, I got to do all these things because I got to get to the blueprint.
Yeah, yeah.
That's illusion.
Yeah,
That is
I gotta check all the boxes to make it happen.
right. And then you apply this to birth. It's like I see people all the time. But I
Yeah,
did the chiropractic and I did
yeah,
the acupuncture and I ate all the like protein and I how did I end up in a C-section? And it's like
yeah.
so these are all things we're doing because we think we got someplace to go.
Yeah, that's such so good.
These outside things kind of become our higher power. Our outside things are what we're going to do to get to someplace.
Mhm.
And the truth of the matter is that the blueprints around us all the time 24/7. It contains us and it contains all the imprints. So
Mm,
what does our job end up being? Our job is just to remember we're connected to the blueprint 24/7.
it's
And
awesome.
then we start to live life on what I've learned in program, 12-step program for relationships is you live life on life's terms, right?
Mm,
And
yeah,
there's a
yeah,
lot more to it that Anna talks about and, you know, I know about, which is like, you know, the window of tolerance and all kinds of things. But it's this idea that I don't have to fix or change the imprint. I'm not a
yeah,
bad girl.
yeah, totally.
I'm not a problem that needs to be fixed. I just have experiences I'm going to have. And if I remember the blueprint, and this is what I've learned and how I explain it to people is the blueprint doesn't disappear. It's either in the background or the foreground. So the work that I
Mm,
do with people is I help them remember that they're connected to the blueprint 24/7. And you're going to forget in the process of it.
yeah,
You bring that remembering into the foreground. So it's
that's
either the background or the foreground. You either forget or you remember.
mm,
Simple. And so there's a set of exercises, there's a set of like things that you can do and happen to start remembering it more than you're forgetting.
yeah.
Then this is the place of surrender. The
Whew,
place of surrender, you getting it? The place of
mhm.
surrender becomes you remember you're connected to something bigger that wants the best for you.
Yeah,
Right? So during labor, isn't that a great place to connect to surrender into?
yeah. I'm thinking we should just write this as a mantra and post it on the wall.
Right? So you wanna like, that's the place to surrender. You don't surrender into, "I accept I'm having a C-section and I need one, like, I gotta find acceptance there." No,
Yeah,
you surrender into the blueprint.
mhm.
It's around you 24/7. The blueprint's job is to unravel the imprint, and every imprint has an intention inside of it. It's a lesson to be learned. And if you look at this as like physics or chemistry, which is like my favorite thing, it's like an imprint is just this condensed
Mm,
energy of the blueprint. So
yeah,
as it starts to unravel and the blueprint unravels it, and we get what people call downloads or lessons,
yeah.
what happens? It's more space. We can then hold
Freedom.
space.
Yeah,
That's it. And now all of a sudden, my mom, who's like, oh, my mom, she triggers this when I start, you know, whatever the story is, I'm doing the work. I'm remembering the blueprint. I'm going through the exercises. I'm connecting it all together. I'm asking the blueprint to take care of my mom and relationship with her because I can't fix her. I can't change her. And all of a sudden, it's like there's like a magic that starts to happen.
yeah,
I still got to make boundaries with my mom. I can't have like a half-hour conversation with her, but it's pretty easy now to have a 10-minute conversation with her.
to exist in the same space.
Right.
Yeah,
And it's like, oh, this is how adulting happens. This is that spiritual stuff everybody talks about. And then from my perception, this is like the 5D stuff everyone's talking about out there, which is you come out of the polarity of the 3D, which is like, you know, you got to choose one or the other. And the 5D is just the both and.
yeah, Yeah.
Do I like my mom? I don't know, not really. Would I be friends with her? No. And I can hold that as a
Yeah.
truth.
Yeah.
And I can appreciate and love her at the same time. And so now I can have a conversation with her from this place of feeling supported and loved by my blueprint and held
Mhm.
boundaries that I'll need to make.
I love it.
So you
Yeah.
go into labor, and I mean, Lindsey, do you want a cesarean birth?
No.
Right. Do you want a hospital transport?
No.
Right. So you can either spend your time, like you can shake hands with it, which is
Yeah.
great. But at some point, I've crossed every T, I've dotted
Mhm.
every I, and now I'm going to surrender into all the choices of the blueprint. The imprints are in there, like, my lineage, my history, like
Yeah.
how I was born. Like I've just kind of explored all of this. And now I can trust that the journey that is supposed to happen with where my consciousness is, the journey that is supposed to happen for me to learn how to be the parent of this child,
Mm.
surrender into that. And
Yeah.
in surrendering into that, there's the magic. And all possibilities are true. You're not preventing something from happening, but you're
Right,
surrendering
right.
to this place of a magic, and that feels different in the body.
Yeah, totally.
Like, can you
Totally.
feel what I'm talking about?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's almost freeing, like maybe freeing, like freeing comes up for me,
Mm-hmm.
when you start to just try on that perspective, you know?
Right?
Yeah.
And then you don't have to be in charge of manifesting
Mhm.
birth.
Yeah.
You can do everything you want, but why would anything, a cesarean birth, a free birth unassisted, a birth with a midwife there you do or don't like, why would any of that be bad if that's where your blueprint is guiding and holding space
Totally. Yeah.
in that stage of your life?
Yeah.
Right. And a simple way of understanding this is, can I feel a settledness in my nervous system? Can I feel a clarity?
Mm.
Right? Because I don't want to work as a licensed midwife. I don't want someone to birth at home with me if they're sitting there going, I really, really, really want this home birth, but like my mom, who I'm inviting to the birth, is just like, that's the scariest thing ever. Like, it's like, how can you settle into your truth if you've got to be the daughter of your mother at the same time you're the mother of your child?
Yeah.
And you have this tension field going into the birth.
Totally. Totally. Ooh, I was just gonna ask you, what do you do if, you're working with a client and it's clear as day, maybe they're hung up in some imprint cycles and
So I have learned that I need to read the room. I've matured. Back in the day, I'd be like, oh, can't you? Like, I didn't realize I was seeing patterns. I didn't realize my brain was on the spectrum and the training with Ray. I
yeah,
didn't realize that's what I could see. So I would have clients, I'd be like, oh, like you got this like going on right now, and I can see that's there. And like, let's work on it, like in this complete innocent place.
yeah,
And I'd have some clients that'd be like, oh my God, yes, I was angry at you at first, but now it makes sense. I get the initiation, like, and they're all good. And then I get people who are just like, why are you shaming me? And I'm
yeah,
okay, I'm
yeah,
not a great midwife for you. So the problem with those situations, Lindsey, was me.
uh,
The problem is I wasn't clear about who I was, what I was seeing. And I was living in a society that didn't understand this either. Like,
yeah,
listen, the holistic psychologist is everywhere now talking about the stuff I've been talking about for years, right? You
yeah,
and I have been talking
yeah,
about it for years. So it's like the problem is that I wasn't honest with myself. I wasn't owning my truth. And
yeah,
I became a victim of like, well, the people who didn't like me, it'd be like, well, it's not my problem. You don't want to hear the truth.
yeah,
And then so I had to heal that part in myself.
totally,
So now, I'm letting people know who I am. So typically, I'm working with people who are on an inward journey of an exploration. It's
yeah,
happening more and more, especially after COVID. And
mm,
people are wanting this information. And I've also learned how to present it in a way so it can be heard.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone's not ready to hear it, it's, I'm not going to get the clarity, and it typically isn't going to come out.
Yeah.
And we don't know which way it's going to go. And I always tell people, I'm here to have a conversation. I'm here to be in relationship. I'm not here to tell you what's going on and tell you what to do. But the people who work with me are like, no, we value your information. So if
They're
I
always
always tell
good.
them, right. So I always tell them, my brain is on the spectrum. So sometimes things come out very passionately, and sometimes I don't have a filter. So I want to let you know, if I say something and it lands in a way where you're like, I don't like how Elizabeth said that, I want to let you know I'm available for a conversation. And I would say typically 9 times out of 10, the conversation that we have is where the repair work happens for both me and for them,
Mm.
because I'm open to the feedback.
Yeah.
But that conversation tends to be a pattern of behavior that they experience from one of their family members, and their family member doesn't have the skill to do the relationship repair work.
Yeah. So it's a repeat pattern.
Not my favorite place to be. I try to avoid it, but I only know it's true because poor Ray Castellino, and then Mary, who is the midwife, he worked with out of Ojai all the time. I mean, they got projections from me in a way like, oh, do I apologize? I didn't know the difference in my unhealed parts, and
Yeah.
they were gracious enough to show up in relationship to the relationship repair work.
Aw.
And so I have the ability to do that also. And part of this
Yeah.
is we have to start understanding that our providers are human beings.
Mm-hmm.
And I say this all the time, I'm not perfect, but imperfect does not mean unsafe as a medical provider at birth.
Yeah.
I've got my skills. I know my protocols. I know how all that works. So me being an imperfect human with how I get excited sometimes, or how I
Mm-hmm.
communicate sometimes, it's not for everybody, but it's like, if I can make room for myself to be imperfect in a relationship, and I can apologize if I know I said something the wrong way, that's where the health is.
Oh, health, healing, all of it.
Right? We have this paradigm, it's an imprint paradigm of care provider as God, as higher
Yeah.
power, right?
Oh
So
my
it's
God. Big pharma as a god.
so that's the paradigm of the brainwashing,
Yeah.
of the false identity
Yeah.
of an imprint that everybody's kind of cycling in. And it's like, no, I like, I have a medical board license. We've talked about this, and it like wants me to play God. It's very hard for me. I'm not a big fan of that. I don't want poor outcomes. So I don't want to be misinterpreted, but it's this idea that I can figure out at an absolute place of life and death. It's just, nobody can.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even a doctor at a hospital can't.
I know.
Right.
So
So
why give them all that power, that external?
right. So
Mm.
we're giving away our power, and then it's happening in our wellness circles and our more relationship circles, or wellness circles, or natural circles.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I saw a chiropractor. Here's the chiropractor. They should have fixed my hips.
Yeah, totally.
No. They're one of many people in a circle of supporting.
You're the healer. Yeah.
Right. You're your own healer. It's
Yeah.
your relationship with your blueprint, and what doesn't work.
Yeah.
You're your own healer.
Mm.
And this is where I'm going to segue in to the other thing that I've been working with, we've been talking about. So I have a certificate in psychedelic medicine now. So legally, I cannot work with it because I have a medical board license.
Yeah.
But what I have learned through the certificate process that I took, which is completely above board, is that they're teaching everybody all this somatic work of holding space. So you're teaching the doctors, you're teaching the therapists, you're teaching everyone to start doing all of this amazing somatic holding space work that I've been trained in for years through Ray Castellino, Anna Chitty, and live births.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Right. So even though I don't give the prescriptions for the
Yeah.
legal ketamine. I can't do that. I work in teams with people and doctors that do. And so I'm the person who is doing the coaching and the holding of the space and the prep work while people are going through their journeys with doctors. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's the same thing if someone was doing any other kind of ceremony, if they're going to Costa Rica and doing an ayahuasca ceremony where it's allowed, or Jamaica with a
Yeah.
psilocybin ceremony. I am able to legally do all the coaching work. And you and I were talking about this beforehand, is that what I perceive as the biggest challenge within this influx of the psychedelic community and everybody talking about it is no one's doing the integration work.
Yeah.
So,
Like, go there. Yes.
right? So the people who are doing all of these ceremonies are typically doing it from a place of the imprint.
Mm.
Oh my God, I did a ceremony, I got all these downloads, I feel so good. And then back to my life where
Yeah.
it's shitty, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna do another ceremony in a month, which is much too quick in my opinion. And
Yes.
it's, and they're like, so they're doing this like cycling in the imprint.
It's like an addiction, like you were saying before.
Right, which is where I used to be. So I know it myself. And when one brings in this idea of the blueprint, connecting with it, coming into a place of whatever they're doing, the microdosing, the ceremony, the, you know, the 6 ketamine journeys with a doctor, it doesn't matter what it is. But when they come into it and they can have somebody holding space to connect to the blueprint, and know that everything that comes up is within the blueprint. Your job is to connect to the blueprint, let the blueprint do on the winding of the imprint, learning your lessons. And then this is where I think the magic is. You work with someone who helps with integration, who has skills at reflection, who is able to hold a relationship to the blueprint within themselves.
Totally. Like that.
To hold the both and.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You were going to say something.
I think that part's key is the reflection, integration, rather than just go right back into ceremony or the high, whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, speaking from somebody who used to do this, so I know this in myself. I spent years doing it that way. And then, you know, I was sharing with you before, if you look at all the ancient spiritual traditions and religion, 12-step program, what do they all have in common? Right? Can I get a witness?
Yeah, they have the observers, they have the integration piece. It's a whole process for them.
Mm-hmm. And so what I constantly see, and is what my theory and what I have been working with and what I know my truth is, it's all about that relationship, right? And a relationship is where the weaving and the integration and the healing happens, and you are your own healer.
Yeah.
And it changes for everybody. Some people have like a great relationship with their priests or rabbi or female cantor or therapist, or in 12-step program, their sponsor-sponsee relationship, or to Jesus, or, you know what I'm saying? It's about a relationship with the plant medicine, but like having a human being to reflect back, to bounce off of. That's where I see the energetic weaving, the health, and more ability to hold space for self and others.
Yeah, it's a big accountability piece that, you know, I think people don't want to own or to face, or whatever you call it.
Why would anyone want to do that? Like, why would anyone want to like look at their shit?
Yeah, that's nasty. I don't want to do that.
I'm just speaking from years of experience before I hit my own emotional bottom. It was like, why would I want to look at my arrogance and self-righteousness? I know what's best. And that's the programming
Yeah.
that I was taught. I'm going
Yeah.
to make the government my higher power. I'm going to make a doctor my higher power. I'm going to make medicine my higher power. I'm going to make the school system my higher power,
Yeah.
and I'm going to make another human that higher power. Whereas
Yeah.
I then learned to be other people's higher powers, and I got to deprogram and look at all that and be accountable and responsible in mine and have a higher power or relationship with a blueprint. And then I am happy to use the expertise of a doctor if I break an arm, and
Yes.
your expertise is in putting bones back together and giving me a cast. Sign me up.
Yeah, totally.
Right.
Oh, it's yeah, I think that just it's such a beautiful example of what's going on, or messy example of what's going on in our society. Like the ownership piece, the accountability piece is lacking across all fronts.
Mhm.
And we have people that want to what do you call it? Just step away to ceremony and figure out their life.
Yeah.
But you can't, like, you have to do the reflection, you have to do the feedback.
Yeah, that's
So
part
you
of it.
learn.
The
Yeah,
integration is so important. I
yeah.
didn't find the health in my life with everything I was doing. I was working so hard at it for so many years. I didn't find the health until I found the work of Anna Chitty explaining this
Mm,
blueprint, and I started. And also, it was really important for me. I did a lot of 12-step program on relationships. So the program for codependency, which I
yeah,
love, and Al-Anon, which is all about relationships. That's where I learned how to be accountable,
yeah,
the self-righteousness within myself. But I started to understand how though that work was also in relationship to a blueprint, but I didn't understand it. I only understood it from an imprint lensing. And so I wasn't getting all the integration and the health
mm,
that I have now until I was able to bring that somatic piece in with all of that. And that was my path.
that's
That
huge.
was
I'm
my way. And it's not everybody's way, but I do think understanding the blueprint is where the sanity comes from and the integration.
It's definitely where the sanity and the integration come in. I was gonna say the sanity for sure, especially living in today's wild world.
Mhm.
It's
And it's helped me be in the world in
yeah,
a sane place and be in relationship with people who don't think like I do.
right, right. Yeah, and to show up non-judgmental from a place of love. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, so shifting gears just a little bit, you have the best, I would say, talk, education, wisdom around low risk birth versus high risk birth.
Right.
And you even have a book out that we have in our lending library.
Right. I've
I'd
got
love to-
this is
Yeah,
my book. So it's some people are like, it's like a pamphlet. I didn't make it into a book because you don't need a lot of extra
yeah,
information.
it's just a work along.
Then this is the workbook. This
So
is like all the questions to ask. What I found through all the years is that people don't know what questions to ask their
mm,
care providers to then find their clarity.
mm,
So, I've got the book and the workbook of getting to know yourself and then asking questions. So then you can be like, oh, I'm seeing a high risk surgeon who mostly works with high risk people, and I'm low risk. They don't have any low risk training. Oh, I want a low risk birth. Maybe I got to go find a different care provider.
yeah,
We
yeah,
got to make them wrong and bad because they're a surgeon. No, they're trained in a different way.
yeah.
I'm looking for something different and I get to choose. Right?
Mhm.
So I explain it like this. It's about what is centered around. What
Mm,
are we centering around? The training of certified nurse midwives and OBGYNs and surgeons is a hospital based training. Hospital based training. And please do not misinterpret me, anyone who's listening to this. It's not a good or a bad. I'm just giving you information. That's
yeah,
I'm not judging this. I'm just explaining. Hospital based way of thinking is centering around what is the problem? How do we fix it?
yeah,
Otherwise called I heard this somewhere else, the nail hammer theory of medicine.
Yeah.
Now, the nail hammer theory of medicine, I've got a broken bone in my arm. I don't want to sit and meditate for days on end and try to work with the blueprint and energies and try to like get it to fuse itself. I don't know. Maybe there's people out there who can do that. I think there are, but that's not my, it's not my thing. I feel really comfortable going to a hospital, having someone who's an expert reset the bone, put a cast on it, and work with it that way. There's a problem. I got a broken arm. It's getting fixed with a cast and an expert, right?
Yeah.
Brain tumor. I don't know about you, Lindsey, or anyone else listening. I'm all for working with a really great brain surgeon. And I'm going to let you know this. I don't need that person to have really good hand holding skills. And I don't need them to have personable skills. I need them to have steady hands and go down like microsurgery and not fuck anything else up. Excuse me, ruin anything else, right? I want that. I'm going to get hand holding and like my somatic work and like there. I'm going to get that from someplace else.
Yeah.
Want them to do. Tumor in the brain, please fix it. Now, what's happened is we have a system of medicine needing to get paid. So there's a system called health insurance. Health insurance is centering around the nail hammer theory. What is the problem? How do we fix it? So, as somebody who works with insurance, they have taught me, and this is the training of people who are in the high-risk hospital-based system of medicine, is you center around the problem. So they tell me that your problem, Lindsey, you're currently a V2 2.0. That's your problem. Your problem is you're pregnant for the first time. So they're telling me you're a problem. That's like part of the brain.
Wild. Yeah.
You're not a problem to be fixed, right? They're telling me that's the problem so I can get insurance to pay. And how do we fix the problem? We fix the V2 2.0 with a 54900. Vaginal birth with like 8 natal visits that last for like 10 minutes because you're just looking at the physical. You're not trained to look at the physiology, the hormones in the body that I know you always talk about. You're not trained to look at the nervous system. You're not trained to be in a relationship. You're just trained on the physical. We're all trained on that. It's really good to have just the physical and the labs and all of that. I'm not dissing it.
Yeah.
Okay? But they're telling me you're the problem of a V2 2.0 that gets fixed with a 54900, and this is what it does and doesn't include.
Right.
It includes space holding. The 54900 doesn't pay me to sit at the birth outside the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
You're in a great active labor pattern and you're transitioning and shaking and throwing up. It doesn't pay me. It doesn't pay me to look at you and go, you got this. You are so strong. Or to look at you and go, yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
You're doing it. Right? It doesn't pay me to do all this work to help you find your truth and your clarity and for your, like, what does your nervous system need to settle so that the oxytocin can flow and the endorphins can flow and that we keep all the adrenaline outside the room. It doesn't do any of that. Right?
Right.
So that is a high risk way of training. You're not seeing and hearing the individual, they're a problem, and you just follow protocols and procedures. So licensed midwifery way of working and how I was trained is we are trained to be in relationship. Prenatals are somewhere between an hour and a half to half an hour, depending on what week you are seeing somebody. We're going over the mental, the emotional. We're doing the physical. We're doing the same physical everybody does.
Yeah.
Base level, everyone knows how to keep you safe. That's here.
It's a given.
That's a given. Like you don't have to like go to a midwife, like a safe midwife. Like, yeah, it's a given. They're all safe. So, but what we're doing is we're developing this relationship, and how I see it is the protocols and procedures are the boundaries that keep you safe. Okay. And it's like looking at a clock. What's the center of the clock? The center of the clock is that mother-child relationship transitioning from inside the body out into the world. Inside out, it's this kind of movement. And around that are all these little pieces, like, who are you with nutrition? What are your eating habits? Do you have a history of an eating disorder? What's your relationship like with your family? What was your birth like? What's going on mentally? What's going on at work? How about emotionally? What about informed consent? Like, you're looking at all these little wheels and cogs inside of the clock that make you who you are. And in that relationship, when I am asking you questions, I am asking questions so I can see and hear you as an individual, but I also need you to answer the questions so that I can see and hear you and know who you are. If you're sitting there the whole time going, I don't like the way Elizabeth asked me about what I'm eating and how she told me I can't have desserts 3 times a day, and you're holding that in and you're going into labor on your midwife, baby's not going to come out the vagina, and then you're going to get upset with me. So I need to be in relationships with somebody, and I do my best to create a safe space so they can say to me, you know, Elizabeth, your tone, the way you asked me about and told me not to have desserts 3 times a day really upset me, and I got to let you know I have a history of an eating disorder.
Mm.
Oh, great. Thank you for allowing me. Now, how are we going to work with
Thanks for sharing that.
What are we going to come up with as the plan? And maybe I am no longer going to talk to you about nutrition and you're going to see someone else, or I'm not going to weigh you anymore. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, what's the plan for you as an individual? Because you allowed yourself to be seen and heard, and you're not expecting me to be the God and mind reader.
Yeah.
And here's the safety. The safety is the protocols and procedures are the boundary that keep you safe. And I'm seeing you as an individual within it.
Mm-hmm.
Take the example of water breaking. I know I'm talking a lot. So,
all right. This
okay,
is great.
all right. So let's take the example of water breaking. If you're seeing a high risk doctor or midwife that's centering around problem, fix it, and they center around protocols and procedures because they're not seeing and hearing you as an individual and spending time with you, establishing safety or relationship. Oh, your water broke. What do the protocols tell me? That's a problem that needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
What do we need to fix the problem of the water breaking? Oh, come on in, and we're going to start you with induction medications.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter whether you're closed and 1 centimeter and cervix is behind. It doesn't matter whether your mother's in town, you have a shitty relationship with your mom. And it doesn't matter whether you're 8 centimeters and you go into labor. Like, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter. The problem is your water broke. We need to fix it.
Yeah.
They're not seeing and hearing you as an individual. Now, how do I approach that? Your water's broken. Okay, it's 3:00 in the morning. Let's go. Let's make sure it's not broken for a high risk reason. We're going to differentiate high risk from low risk of water broken. Because, Lindsey, if your water breaks and you've got a fever and pea green soup meconium, what is your risk?
A little bit of an infection.
Right. And you're not low risk anymore. You're high risk. Thank
Right.
God for the hospitals and the NICU, right? So we got to rule out that you're high risk with water broken. We differentiate between low and high risk, right? Practice evidence-based care. Evidence-based care states 72 hours before you need to kind of have the baby. In Europe, I think it's like 94 hours, evidence-based care. I'm going to practice evidence-based care. Then I'm going to educate you about your body. So guess what? Your body is kind of amazing, but I need you to not stick things up into your vagina to create an infection. So please don't have sex. Please wipe from front to back. You know, I'm not going to do a vaginal exam because it's not going to give me any information to tell me what's going on. You're feeling the baby move. You know, it's clear fluids. Like, I'm checking all these little things off. Great. She's low risk. So what am I going to say? Go to bed.
Yeah. Chill out.
Chill out. Let's see what happens. If you call me in the morning and you're like, hey, I'm still pregnant, let's have a conversation. Now, what does that conversation look like? If you're like, oh my God, you know, I'm still pregnant, I have no signs of labor, and my mom is in the other room, and I just, like, she was supposed to leave yesterday, and she's like, not, now she's staying. Like, aren't you just getting anxious with me talking about that?
Yes.
How's this baby going to come out your vagina, or you're going to go into labor if you're like sitting here like this, like my mom's in the other room, right?
No way. Yeah.
So we got to work with you as an individual. Get her on a plane, get her out of the city, tell her to, like, go. You got to make the boundary.
Yeah.
So I can be the mother of the child and not the child of my mother.
Mm-hmm.
Or are you the person who is like, Elizabeth, like, I really want my mom here. And like, she just got on a flight, but it doesn't land until 2:00 in the afternoon. Like, look at my body with that. right?
Yeah, you're not going into labor till mom gets there on that one.
You're just going to keep producing adrenaline and no
Yeah.
oxytocin. So who are you as an individual?
Mhm.
Then I'm going to do a vaginal exam when it's going to give me information.
Yeah.
Who are you? Are you the person who was raised by an ER doctor and you're like, okay, water breaks, we got to get this baby out, and I want to do it naturally, and I'm going to start with the castor oil, I'm going to start with this, and I'm going to start with this, and I'm going to do this herb, go into the car, and because I'm only giving myself 24 hours because that's only what feels safe for me, right? Or are you the person who was raised on an ashram in like Oregon somewhere, and you're like, oh, 24 hours? 4 days? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, like 6 days is not a problem. I know if I have a fever, I got to go in. Like, who are you as an individual?
Yeah.
See and hear you. And what am I going to do? I'm going to be in relationship with that.
Mhm.
Right? And sometimes a relationship with someone like myself, a midwife, has to do with what the laws are
Mm.
around transport once the water's broken. Sometimes it has to do with community standards. You
Mm.
know, is the hospital and the doctor I'm working with, in case it goes high risk, going to be okay with it being 72 hours
Yeah.
or 4 days or 5 days? Because I don't want to risk my medical board license so that you can have the birth that you want and I can't service people. That's my paradigm that I live in.
Yeah.
The people who don't live in that paradigm, and it's
Mhm.
totally fine. There's states where you don't have to have a license and it doesn't matter. And so it's like, who are you as an individual? What's your
Mhm.
relationship with your midwife? What are your midwife's boundaries? What are your doctor's boundaries?
Right.
Right? Like, so you get to know all of this. And that's part of what these questions are. And part of what I do when I do consultations with people to help them write a birth plan. I get them to know what they're wanting, who their care provider is, and come into relationship.
Right.
And a lot of people, fortunate or unfortunate, are like, I don't like my doctor's protocols, but I don't have the money to pay for an out of
Yes.
hospital birth
Yeah.
because my insurance won't pay for it. So it's like, okay, well, how do we work with that now?
Right. I see that as one of the biggest hangups right now.
It is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So,
Fortunate.
yeah. So that's how we can see and hear an individual. And it's just the training is not happening when you're centering around protocols, procedures, and centering around insurance numbers.
Right. Right.
And that doesn't make their training bad. And it doesn't make them bad people.
None of
Because
this is about morality.
no, it's not about morality. It's like about skill set. So
Yeah.
it's if you are needing a C-section, don't come to me. It's going to
Yeah.
be a bad outcome. I am a low risk out of hospital care provider who specializes in that,
Mhm.
with all kinds of things and tools around that. But if what you're wanting is an unmedicated low risk birth in a hospital and you're seeing a high risk specialist, you might not be seen and heard in the way you want.
Totally. 1,000%.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Forget about the morality of it and look at the facts.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just information, and it's all choices and information that hangs out in the blueprint.
Mhm.
They're all
Totally.
things that can happen.
Oh, okay. So if somebody wants to do some birth consulting with you, how
Mhm.
can they get a hold of you? Can they email you, phone you? What's the best
So
route?
I'm working on the new website. I'm just getting around to it. So that's going to be happening soon. But I think the best way is to really find me on Instagram. So you can slip into my DMs, not my company one, but Elizabeth Bachner. So at Elizabeth Bachner. And you can send me a message there, and then I can kind of set you up that way. I think the Graceful site, graceful.com, has the ability to set up consultations, but I really like to just like converse with people first, just have a quick
Yeah.
conversation, see what the intention is, see what you're wanting, see how to go, and then we'll just set everything up. Um, Soon I will be technologically advanced like everybody else and have the Calendly thing going, and we'll do it that way. But right now I have the space and time just to kind of to be in direct relationship at the start of this right now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh. And then you do, or you are attending some births right now in Los Angeles or New Mexico.
Yeah. So I do work privately as a midwife. I take private clients on, and we can always have a conversation about that. And I also do work nationally and internationally. But if we do that, we have to have a conversation about having a licensed care professional at that birth. And then we find a way to work. I've traveled to different places and done that also with the right people.
Awesome.
Yeah. And
Uh,
then just to let everybody know, again, I'm going to say this. I'm not the right person for everybody, and that's fine. And my wish for
a
you
bit, yeah.
listening is that you find the right person for you. You find the right person that has you being seen and heard in a way that works for you. And if you have somebody where you don't feel seen and heard, find somebody else or
Yeah.
find that support person to come to that birth to make sure you do get seen and heard, because it's really important.
That's so key. Like that's everything.
Right there.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Because it's such a monumental chapter transition that you're going through, and
Yeah.
you deserve to be seen and heard.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
so, and just to provide clarity, I am helping people birth babies and birth themselves with the somatic work, get connected into it. So for me, it's a lot of the same thing. And that if somebody is not pregnant or is not having any more babies and is like wondering about like how they can be a more connected mom or
Mm,
partner or whatever is going on for them, or has a history of trauma that's unresolved, doesn't have to be birth trauma, I'm happy to work with them on a somatic level too.
I love that.
Yeah.
So Elizabeth Bachner on Instagram.
Yeah.
And Bachner is spelled Bachner.
Correct.
Uh,
Uh-huh.
I appreciate you so much for this time today and hanging out with you all in the past and in the future. I know. Yeah.
And I'm
So,
so excited for you to have your turn, Lindsey.
oh, well, thank you. I've been thinking about you, just your little wisdom bombs dropping in.
Uh-huh. And we're gonna, listen, we'll have another conversation and I'm gonna
Yeah.
tell everybody this just so they understand. I'm gonna help support Lindsey so she births as the mother of this child, and
Yeah.
not a chiropractor or the wisdom keeper of BirthFit or a doula.
That's so key. And I think that, gosh, I could go off on a tangent. Like you talking about those different hats and the different roles
Mhm.
and being mindful of that. And I think for me, having to, like we were talking about social media before, but I think, I stepped out of social media for like a month or two in the fall. And I think this fall, I'm going to do the same thing before birth arises, just so I can go inward,
You taking
and
off,
wear that hat.
but you have to take off all those hats,
Yeah.
right? And just
Yeah.
be right there as the mother of this child in relationship,
Mm,
and then we see the magic that happens.
yeah. That's key.
Hmm.
That's everything. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm. Well, thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Y'all go find Elizabeth on Instagram.
Mhm.
And don't forget to check out our nonprofit, which is now the resource for this podcast. So nonprofit.birthfit.com. And you'll see that we are providing doula support for those active duty military, those married to active duty military.
Love that.
Yeah, so check that out.
More about that.
Yes. All right. We're going to sign off. Bye, everyone.
Bye.